Jealousy kills his wife. In these difficult economic times, the supply of labor and available jobs are almost inversely proportional. At such a time, perhaps the most viable option is to work overseas. It requires a short commitment, no experience, and comes with a salary attractive enough to draw countless people. Setting aside all the downsides, overseas work is truly a savior for young laborers. Scarlett was no exception. She had graduated from university 3 years prior but couldn't find a job. Scarlett had just married last December. Her husband worked as a factory laborer nearby. Truthfully, this marriage wasn't part of her plan, but after being unemployed in her hometown for so long, her parents urged her to marry. They arranged for her to meet a young man from the same village. The wedding took place quickly thereafter, much to the surprise of many friends. After they married, her in-laws gave them a small house nearby to live and work. Indeed, after marriage, everything seemed to change for the better. 4 months later, Scarlett was accepted into an overseas work program in Europe. The term was 2 years, with a guaranteed sum of nearly 2 billion VND upon completion of the program. For people in Dong Thon village and many other unemployed young wives, this was truly an excellent opportunity. Mike initially opposed it, but both families persuaded him, and Scarlett promised that when she returned, they would use the money as capital for their business. Thinking of their future, Mike was appeased, but then he thought of the long time they would be apart. Moreover, his wife was still so young, and there were moments when he couldn't help but feel useless, unable to provide her with a rich and prosperous life. "Yes, thank you," Scarlett said, turning to her husband, phone in hand. "Mike, the company just called me. My language class schedule is set." Mike had just returned from work and was sitting, waiting for a chance to shower. Hearing his wife, he nodded, "So, we have to pay right away." "Not yet, probably just the language course fee. It's over 5 million, but I can handle that. The deposit for the trip itself, I don't have clear information, but I heard it's around 300 million, Mike." "That's a lot of money. I wonder if our parents can get it together. If not, I'll take the house deeds to the bank for a loan." "Thank you, husband. You're so good to me." Mike chuckled, pinching his wife's cheek. "What are you talking about? Thank you. Just focus on doing well. When you come back, we'll start a business, and then we'll think about having children." Scarlett leaned into her husband's embrace. In truth, she didn't want to go, but she endured for their future. The next day, Scarlett and Mike took a bus to the city to complete the language class procedures. Mike stayed there for a few days, even finding a room for his wife. After everything was settled, he returned to their hometown to continue working. Time flew by, and 2 months passed. Scarlett had now successfully completed her language course. She was just waiting to receive her certificate before flying out for the overseas work program. She excitedly called her husband, urging him to arrange the deposit. Speaking of Mike, for the past 2 months, whenever he had a moment of free time, he would rush to visit his wife. But today was different. He went to visit her without telling her beforehand. After finishing work at 5:30 p.m., he took a direct bus to the city. By the time he arrived, it was nearly 7:00 p.m. The alley leading to Scarlett's rented room was quite narrow. However, he had chosen this place himself because the security seemed quite good. A large, cultural neighborhood sign hung prominently at the entrance, complemented by bright streetlights. In this area, tenants were mostly office workers and families, not students, so there wasn't much crime. Upon arriving, Mike saw that Scarlett's rented room was locked from the outside. He mumbled, "Strange, where could she be at this hour?" He pulled out his phone and called his wife. After a long ring, Scarlett answered. "Hello, darling, have you finished work?" Mike was about to say something, but he stopped himself. I just got home from work. Are you at your rented room?" "No, tonight is a party at the language center. I just finished the course this afternoon. Your wife got an excellent grade. Isn't that amazing? Oh, I'm very good. So, when are you coming home?" "Probably soon, honey. I'm just with some girlfriends from the language class, all girls. Don't worry, okay." Okay then. Try to come home early, dear." Mike hung up. He didn't have a key to his wife's room, so he had to go to a tea house at the end of the alley to wait. In his hand, he still held a bag of fruit from earlier. Inside were apples, pears, and a few persimmons, his wife's favorites. Mike walked and thought to himself, "My wife will be so surprised." Outside, Mike pulled up to a cold tea stall, ordered a cup and a plate of sunflower seeds, and sat sipping while he waited. The clock had passed 10 p.m. Mike had lost count of how many cups of tea he'd had. Impatient, Mike took out his phone to call his wife. Scarlett didn't answer, nor did she call him back. By the fifth call, Mike stood up in a huff. He paid for his tea and water, then walked into the alley to wait. From a distance, he heard the sound of a motorbike approaching. The motorbike stopped right at the end of the alley and a girl got off. It was Scarlett. Though it was dark, Mike knew his wife's figure well. What was even more shocking was that the person who brought her home was a man. Scarlett had clearly said earlier that she was only going out with girls. Mike stood across the street, in a hidden corner of the tea house, so Scarlett didn't seem to notice him. The two talked for a few moments, but Mike couldn't hear clearly. After they finished, the man drove away, and Scarlett turned to walk inside. Mike didn't call out to his wife immediately. He quietly followed her in. As Scarlett fumbled with the lock, she felt a presence behind her. When she turned around, she jumped and cried out, "Oh my God, Mike, what are you doing here?" Mike stood still, not answering. Scarlett saw the handbag and fruit in her husband's hand and assumed Mike had bought them for her, so she chirped, "Why didn't you tell me you were coming? Come on, let's go inside, honey." Scarlett finished speaking and the lock clicked open. The room door opened and Scarlett stepped inside, reaching for the light switch. "Honey, who just dropped me off?" Scarlett froze. She knew her husband had seen. But truthfully, tonight she had gone to a party with several women from the center. However, near the end of the evening, the center director dropped by, and when she left earlier, she'd taken a taxi. So when it was time to leave, the director offered to drive her home. Thinking there was no harm, she agreed. Scarlett hastily explained, "Mike, calm down. It's not what you think. Please, let me explain." Mike shook his head, his voice tight. "Explain what? The basic fact is, you lied to me when I called earlier." Scarlett shook her head, her eyes now welling up with tears. "No, I swear to you, it's not what you think." "Stop it." Mike stood up, threw the bag of fruit to the floor, and slapped Scarlett across the face. The resounding slap caught Scarlett completely off guard. He had never laid a hand on her before, but today Mike had openly struck her like this. What could have driven his anger to such a peak? Mike's voice was guttural. "You're a whore, I wasn't wrong. Bringing you here was giving you the opportunity to cheat on me. You filthy, I'll divorce you, but before I do, I'll shame your face and let your parents know how wonderful their daughter is." Scarlett's voice was hoarse. She rushed forward, grabbing Mike's arm, tears streaming down her face. "No, Mike, it's not like that. I swear I didn't betray you. All right, if you don't believe me, let me call my boss and you can talk to him." Tell me you two have been sleeping together 3 times, haven't you?" Mike finished speaking, then flung Scarlett's hand away, pushing her backward. Scarlett's eyes widened, she stumbled and fell, her head unconsciously hitting the edge of the table. A dry, rasping sound escaped Scarlett's throat, making Mike freeze. He looked at his wife's body lying motionless on the floor and frowned. "Is she faking it? Get up." Scarlett remained still, unmoving on the ground. Mike moved closer, the heat of his anger still not subsiding. He reached out and shook Scarlett's head. As he lifted it, Mike felt his hand become damp. "What is this?" Mike gasped in horror when he realized the liquid on his hand was blood, fresh blood. He then shook Scarlett by both shoulders. Scarlett, what's wrong with you? Speak." But Scarlett seemed not to hear. Her eyes were tightly shut, and there was no reaction at all. Mike panicked. He raised his hand and placed it on her nose. A jolt of electricity shot through Mike's brain, making him recoil his hand. Scarlett was no longer breathing. Mike clutched his head. He hadn't wanted things to turn out this way. It was just in a fit of rage, he hadn't been able to control himself. Although he hadn't directly killed his wife, it was merely an accident, but what if people found out? Mike would certainly not escape a prison sentence. Thinking of going to jail, Mike's eyes darkened. No, Mike can't go to jail. His family only has him. If he goes to jail, who will take care of his parents? No, it can't be like this. I can't go to jail because of such a wayward woman. Mike sat there for about half an hour, then he stood up. At this moment, there was no longer any panic, no fear on Mike's face. He picked up his wife's body and carried it into the bathroom, muttering, "It's your fault, Scarlett, not mine. It's your fault. It's all your fault." That night, Mike dismembered Scarlett's body into many pieces. Afterward, he gathered all the handbags in the rented room. The next step was to divide Scarlett's body into smaller bags. He tried to chop and mince them so finely that no one could identify them. After dividing the body, Mike meticulously cleaned the rented room, careful not to leave any trace of the struggle. Even the cleaning was done very quietly. It was past 11 p.m. He didn't want anyone nearby to hear any sounds. What if they came over to investigate? After cleaning, Mike carried a total of 5 bags containing the remains. He knew the area very well. 100 meters to the left was a river. If he threw the bags in there at this time, they would drift out to sea by morning. Having finished, Mike quietly returned to his room, lay on his bed, and calmly planned how to deal with his in-laws. The next morning, Mike left the rented room early to avoid being seen. After all, besides Scarlett, no one had seen Mike there yesterday, and Scarlett could now never speak again. Back home, Mike calmly ate breakfast and drank coffee as if nothing had happened. Then he took Scarlett's phone and sent a text message to her family, announcing that she was at the airport. He also cleverly added a line, "Don't tell my husband, I'm so sick of him." After sending the message, Mike removed the SIM card and turned off the phone for good. That day, he worked as usual. In the evening, he didn't receive any calls from his in-laws. 2 days later, Mike went to his in-laws' house with a very worried look. Mrs. Kim, Scarlett's mother, was sitting in the yard, drying clothes. Seeing Mike, she quickly asked him, "Oh, Mike, where are you going? Not working today, son." No, Mom. Do you have any news of my wife?" Mike feigned concern. Mrs. Kim, hearing this, suddenly remembered the text message from her daughter a few days ago. She stammered, No. Is something wrong, son?" Mike pulled up a chair and sat down. "I don't know, Mom. I've been calling her since yesterday, but couldn't reach her. This morning I went to the city, but she wasn't at her rented room. The landlady said she'd been gone for a few days. I borrowed the landlady's key and opened the room, and I saw all her belongings were gone. I thought she might have been angry and came back here." "Did you two argue?" "No, Mom, I don't know anything." Mrs. Kim sat in silence for a long time, looking at her son-in-law's worried and anxious face. She thought she couldn't hide it anymore. She showed Mike Scarlett's message. After reading it, Mike forced a laugh and said, "Mom, you're joking, aren't you? How could that be? We were just talking normally a few days ago." "I don't know, son, but Scarlett going abroad is real. Just calm down, son. When Scarlett gets there and settles in, she'll call, and then I'll ask her what happened." Mike put on an act. He continued his daily life and work as usual in the following days. Every few days, he would pretend to visit his in-laws to inquire about news, but there was no news to be found. At least a month passed, and Mike gathered nearly 20 million VND. He had a friend at the post office send it to Mrs. Kim's house, claiming it was money sent by Scarlett. At the same time, he typed a short letter stating that Scarlett's life abroad was stable, and she didn't want to contact her family because she feared Mike would find out her number there. She was only focused on work for now. Mrs. Kim was greatly relieved to receive the money. She called Mike to talk. He pretended to slump on the chair and said, "It's all right, Mom. Perhaps my wife has her own difficulties. We haven't even been married that long, have we?" Through all the plays Mike staged, he now became the unfortunate son-in-law in everyone's eyes. Neighbors and even Scarlett's family believed she had gone abroad for wealth or perhaps found another lover. Mike continued to play his part diligently. For the next month, whenever he was free, he would visit Scarlett's family to inquire and take care of Mrs. Kim as if she were his own mother. Mrs. Kim's family was small. Her husband had passed away long ago, and she had 2 daughters. Scarlett was gone, and Jade, Scarlett's younger sister, had dropped out after 11th grade. The girl worked as a sewing factory worker in the district town and rented a room there, only coming home occasionally. "Mom, oh Mom?" The faint call from the alley made Mrs. Kim startle. She knew who was coming. It had been nearly 2 years since her daughter had left, and her poor son-in-law, Mike, still faithfully came to visit. Mrs. Kim shuffled out to open the door, not forgetting to ask the man standing before her, "Son, aren't you working today?" Mike slowly stepped in. He placed a bag of goods on the table. Inside were a few boxes of milk and some fruit, then smiled and said, "I quit my factory job, Mom. I've saved up some capital recently, and I'm planning to open a construction materials shop soon." "That's wonderful, son. I'm so happy for you." Mike walked to the altar, lit an incense stick for Mrs. Kim's late husband, then asked, "Has Scarlett contacted you at all, Mom?" Mrs. Kim heard Mike's question and shook her head. She looked into the distance and sighed, "Mike, That girl hasn't contacted us for a long time, and she sent money too. I think she's found a good new life over there." "No, that can't be. She's my wife, how could she change her heart so quickly?" Mrs. Kim continued to shake her head. "I'm sad too, but I can't bear to see you waiting in vain like this. It's been nearly 2 years, son, you need your own life. Go ahead and file for divorce, I'll represent Scarlett's side." Mike frowned. "Mom, do you really want that?" Mrs. Kim looked very sad, but she patted Mike's shoulder and said, "You've been a good son-in-law all this time, you've taken care of me in every way, but you can't go on like this forever. You're an only son, you need to give your in-laws a grandchild to carry on the family line. Listen to me, son, just go ahead. Besides, Jade is getting married soon and moving back here. She and her husband will take good care of me, so don't worry and take the next step." Mike hesitated for a long time, then he hugged Mrs. Kim and said, I thank you, Mom." And so, a few days later, the divorce proceedings were finalized. Mike emerged from the courthouse looking utterly carefree. He was now unburdened, free of any entanglements. The charade he had maintained for the past 2 years was now complete. Who cared about Scarlett now, a woman who had abandoned her husband in the eyes of the world? Mike drove straight to the district town, where he had rented a storefront to open his construction materials shop. He used the excuse of moving away from his hometown to avoid painful memories. Once again, Mike gained many points in the villagers' eyes. Not a few people, given his personality and circumstances, volunteered to arrange matches for their daughters or granddaughters. But Mike didn't need that. For the past 2 years, while outwardly playing the grieving husband, Mike had been secretly involved with a hairdresser in the district town. Her name was Trish, and she was a widow with no children. Her husband had died in a traffic accident. Throughout these 2 years, Mike and Trish had even been sleeping together. She had urged Mike to quickly divorce Scarlett so they could be together. But Mike couldn't be the one to initiate it. He had to wait for the opportune moment, and it would only be fine if the breakup appeared to be entirely without his initiative. Mike pulled over and Trish immediately embraced him, clinging to his chest. It was Trish. She knew where he had just come from and didn't need to say anything else. Her face beamed with joy. Now, she and Mike could be openly together, no longer needing to fear curious glances or gossip. Mike felt the same way. He, too, wanted to marry this woman. He had wasted his youth, and finding someone who loved him as much as Trish was rare. Mike chuckled, stroking Trish's hair. "All right, let's go inside first." Trish nodded, taking his hand and pulling her lover indoors. Once inside and the door locked, the two fell upon each other like hungry tigers. Mike quickly tore off Trish's shirt, bending down to devour her breasts. Soft moans filled the air. Mike reached out and turned off the light, only the small nightlight remained on. As he was immersed in the sweet scent of his lover's skin, Mike suddenly detected a metallic, fishy smell. He paused, inhaled deeply. Suddenly, he heard a giggle, but this giggle wasn't Trish's usual sound. Mike thought his lover was teasing him, so he reached out to playfully pinch her nose, intending to whisper something. Because Mike was still buried in her firm breasts, he could only grope for her face. But as soon as he touched what he thought was her nose, he felt his hand become wet, and the spot he touched felt very strange. It was rough and cold like ice. Mike was startled. He quickly pulled his hand back and looked. Mike's hand was completely covered in blood, a thick red liquid dancing on his hand, and the metallic stench intensified. Quickly, Mike looked up, and to his horror, the face staring back at him was not Trish's, but a demonic face. A face soaked in blood, flesh torn and bruised, covered in wounds, an incomplete face. The bridge of the nose was grotesquely severed. One eye was missing, and the teeth were skewed to one side. He was seized with terror and collapsed to the floor. The sound of a light switch echoed, accompanied by a sudden flood of light. Mike, what's wrong?" Mike jolted awake. The horrifying, bloody scene he had just witnessed had vanished. Before him was still Trish, hastily pulling her shirt to cover her ample breasts, her eyes filled with worry as she asked her lover, "What's wrong with you?" Mike shook his head, pushing himself up with his hands. I'm a little tired." Mike then stumbled into the bathroom to wash his face. Once there, Mike splashed handfuls of water from the sink onto his face. His clarity quickly returned. He looked at himself in the mirror. That image just now was truly terrifying. Had what he touched on Trish's face merely been an illusion? In Mike's mind, an image of Scarlett, his now past wife, suddenly appeared. Mike sat down on the floor, slowly recalling that face, that hair. It was just like Scarlett's, and those gruesome, bloody wounds on her face. Hadn't Mike himself inflicted them when he killed her? The more Mike thought, the more his mind felt muddled. He sat up, shaking his head, trying to reassure himself. It can't be like that. I must be thinking about Scarlett too much, causing these hallucinations. She died 2 years ago. How could she possibly be here? After this thought, Mike took a deep breath, trying to compose himself. When he stepped out, Trish had put her clothes back on. She looked at Mike with a look of concern. "Are you all right?" No, I'm fine. I was just a little tired." Trish saw that Mike seemed more lucid, so she didn't ask further questions. However, the passion had been interrupted by Mike, and she couldn't help but feel annoyed. Trish stood up, opened the door, and walked to the front of the house. "You should rest. I'm going to the hair salon for a bit." From Trish's attitude, he knew she was angry. Usually, in situations like this, he would pull her into his arms and compensate her with passionate lovemaking. But now, Mike still felt a little queasy. He could only nod and look at Trish. "Please be careful on your way." Trish shook her head dismissively and walked out. Now, Mike was alone in the room. The silence now truly bothered him. For some reason, his mind was filled with images of Scarlett. Throughout the past 2 years, Mike had never felt this way. But ever since that terrifying incident, he felt as if he was no longer alone in this room. He always felt as if someone was in a corner of the room, watching him. Unable to bear it anymore, Mike stood up, opened the door, and went outside to get some fresh air. He walked along the street and stopped at a nearby tea house. A glass of cold iced tea was quickly brought to him. He lit a cigarette and took a drag. Everything seemed to return to balance. Mike chuckled at his fear just now. He wondered when he had become so weak. A guilty conscience creates phantoms. As he puffed on his cigarette, Mike heard a loud conversation next to him. "Ms. Hugh, let me tell you, have you heard the news?" "What news?" "That house at the end of the street, Mrs. Baugh's house." "Which house?" "That house belonging to Mr. Nam's wife and husband, the one he just bought. They say there's a sound of running water every night. And children crying. It's chilling." "Really? How come I've never heard it, living here all this time?" "You're always inside the house, how would you know? Besides, that house has been empty for nearly 10 years. Mr. Nam only just bought it." The conversation between the two women made the old tea house owner curious, and she interjected. "Well, young ladies, it's best to be respectful of these yin and yang matters. You tell them if they need help, they can come to me, and I'll recommend a sorcerer. He's very skilled. Any evil spirits or demons that encounter him will flee." Mike secretly laughed to himself. It's this day and age, and these women still believe in fortune-telling and ghosts. It was already mid-morning. Mike stood up, paid for his drink, and slowly headed home. When he got home, Trish still wasn't back. Mike quickly microwaved a bowl of noodles to fill his stomach. After eating, he went to bed and dozed off. Trish returned in the afternoon. It seemed she had expected more than a sleeping figure with regular snores. Still displeased and angry, she didn't let Mike lie there. Trish went to get her things to go into the bathroom. It was then that Mike began to reconcile with her, but perhaps this apology was still a bit sad. Mike had to spend a good deal of money taking Trish to a restaurant and buying her a new handbag. Needless to say, when they walked out of the shopping center, Trish's eyes were twinkling with joy. One hand clutched her new bag tightly, and the other embraced Mike. He gently pinched her nose. "Still mad at me?" Trish giggled, playfully nudging Mike's hip. "I don't know, I'm still not over it. You'll have to make it up to me tonight." Mike, not fully focused as he walked to the car, slipped a hand into Trish's shirt, cupped her breast, and whispered, "Let's see who lets who off the hook tonight." The two continued to laugh and chat until they reached the parking lot. Mike fumbled with the key in the ignition. Suddenly, Trish nudged him and said, Mike, I want to tell you something, wait a minute. That girl over there, she seems to have been following us for a while." "Which girl?" Mike looked up when he heard. Trish pointed to a corner of the parking lot. Mike frowned, his eyes following her pointed finger. He froze. Indeed, there was someone ahead, and not just someone, but someone he knew. It was Scarlett. The person standing in that corner wasn't close enough for Mike to see clearly, but her figure, and especially the clothes she was wearing, were exactly the same as the outfit Scarlett wore on the last night she was alive. Needless to say, Mike was flustered and very scared. The girl slowly approached the two of them. The closer she came, the more Mike felt his heart tighten. "Scarlett, why is it Scarlett? Has she come here to get revenge on me? No, it can't be like that. She's dead, she's dead." Mike stammered. Trish, standing beside him, was equally panicked. She kept shaking Mike's arm. Mike, what is it?" The girl came closer. Mike rubbed his eyes. He was stunned. Indeed, a girl was approaching him. But it wasn't Scarlett, it was a stranger. She wasn't wearing Scarlett's clothes either, but a shimmering dress. She just walked past them and stopped at a row of cars further on. It turned out she was just getting her car. Mike exhaled in relief, wiping the beads of sweat from his forehead. But it wasn't just his forehead. Mike was covered in sweat all over. It ran down his spine. A sudden chill came over him. What the hell is happening here? Is Mike being haunted? Mike shook his head, trying to regain his composure. This was the second time in 2 years he had seen Scarlett's image, and both times it had brought him extreme terror. Realizing he couldn't stay in the parking lot any longer, Mike quickly jumped into the car. Trish was still standing on the ground with a bewildered look. Mike started the engine and snapped at Trish. "Get in!" The poor girl didn't understand what was happening. Anger flared in Mike's shouted command. Back home, Mike quickly locked the door. Before stepping inside, he carefully peeked out onto the street to see if anyone was following him. Inside, Mike collapsed onto the sofa, panting. Trish, whose brief moment of happiness had ended, was now irritated again. She sat down, staring at Mike. "What's wrong with you today? Is something bothering you that you're not telling me?" Mike shook his head. "It's nothing, honey. Lately, I've just been a bit tired. The shop's opening day is coming up, so I'm a bit stressed." Trish didn't think so. She had noticed Mike had changed ever since he finalized the divorce with his ex-wife. She quickly covered her face and sobbed. "I understand now. You don't want to break up with your ex-wife, do you? You're cold and grumpy with me, all because you're sad about breaking up with your ex." Trish, like many others, was fooled by the play Mike had staged. In her mind, she always thought he was a man of deep loyalty. She felt her position was shaky. If Mike was still so deeply attached, what if his ex-wife returned one day? Would she be cast aside? Moreover, she and Mike weren't officially anything. She was just his mistress. When Trish sobbed, Mike felt even more rattled inside. Mike tried to reassure Trish. He went to where Trish was sitting, hugged her, and gently stroked her soft skin. "What are you thinking about? There's nothing like that. I'm completely over her. Don't you trust me after all this time?" Trish, hearing Mike's words, quickly interjected. "Then when will you marry me? I've silently endured like a shadow by your side all this time. Now you're single, can't we get married?" Mike was silent for a long time, then said, "I've thought about all this, don't worry. But it wouldn't be right to get married again so soon after divorcing my wife. I plan to register our marriage after the shop officially opens, all right." Mike's answer didn't seem to fully satisfy Trish. She still pouted. "I don't know, you figure it out. I can't wait any longer." "All right, I know." Mike hugged her, caressed her, and gently kissed her pretty face. "I'll make it up to you, okay?" "No, I'm a little tired tonight. Let's do it another time," Trish said, then stood up abruptly and went to shower. Mike wasn't really eager for intimacy at that moment either. That eerie feeling was still lingering somewhere in his mind. After showering, the two went to bed and fell asleep. Mike woke up with a start in the middle of the night. Something was pressing on his lower body. As he groggily opened his eyes, Mike heard a soft hiss. "Lie still. Now's your chance to make it up to me." Mike forced a smile. It was Trish. Indeed, she couldn't take it anymore. This passionate desire was what kept her in this secret relationship with Mike for so long. Trish playfully fumbled with Mike's pants, and arousal quickly overcame him. He closed his eyes tightly, occasionally letting out soft moans. Then a giggle sounded again. "But wait, that giggle?" Mike gasped. He pulled up the blanket, and to his horror, beneath Mike was a grotesque, bloody body. This face was the disfigured, chopped-up face of Scarlett. Her mouth was still clamped onto his manhood. "Oh my God!" Mike shrieked in terror, kicking the disgusting body aside and leaping out of bed. The lights came on, and Mike became even more frantic. In front of him was Trish, not that horrible corpse. But now, Trish's eyes were filled with fury. She stood up, not saying a single word. Trish quickly gathered her clothes and left for home that very night. No matter how much Mike tried to hold her back, it was useless. She even screamed as if he were hitting her. Helpless, Mike had to let her go. Sitting dazed on the chair, Mike felt as if he was sinking into a hallucination. Scarlett, Trish. The two images intertwined in Mike's mind. He was slowly going insane. Are there really ghosts in this world? If so, they couldn't be more horrifying than what Mike had just seen and experienced. Mike sat huddled in the corner of the room like that. he didn't have the courage to sleep at this moment. Or is Scarlett a ghost now, appearing to exact revenge on him? Mike had always been a non-believer in ghosts, but the strange events that had just occurred made him question the spiritual world. Suddenly, a thought flashed in his mind. He remembered what the old woman at the tea house had said yesterday. She seemed to have mentioned exorcism. So, the next day, as soon as dawn broke, Mike went out immediately. Partly because he couldn't stay long in that solitary space. Partly because he had something to do. Mike went straight to the tea house from yesterday, pulled up a chair, and sat down. The usual iced tea quickly cleared his mind. Seeing the somewhat haggard face of the customer in front of her, the old shop owner curiously asked, "Young man, why do you look so worn out today? Did your wife keep you up all night, or what?" Mike forced a smile and replied, "I couldn't sleep last night, Grandma." "Oh, why couldn't you sleep? You were harassed by a spirit." Hearing this, the old woman was startled. "Then, are you Mr. Nom's family?" That name vaguely reminded Mike of the character in the story he had overheard yesterday. Mike shook his head. "No, I just live nearby." "So, what kind of haunting is it? A spirit in the house?" Mike hesitated for a moment, then replied, "No, just an old friend of mine. She passed away a long time ago, but now she's suddenly reappeared." The old woman quickly said, "If it's that kind of spirit, it's very troublesome. You must have done something wrong to her in the past, right? But never mind, I have a way to help you." The old woman's answer was not outside Mike's expectations. Following her directions, that afternoon, Mike went to a small house with a garden full of trees and a miniature rockery. He timidly stepped inside and saw a man sitting alone, playing chess. He looked to be in his 60s with a wrinkled face full of crow's feet. He wore a black traditional Vietnamese outfit. Mike spoke up, "Excuse me, master, are you Master Quinn?" The man, who had been engrossed in his chess game, stopped. He looked up, nodded, and replied, "Yes, I am Quinn. You're Mike, aren't you? You've come here for my help." "Come inside, let's talk," Master Quinn said, standing up and gesturing inside. Mike quickly followed. However, as he neared the door, he was stopped. Before he could speak, Master Quinn spoke. "Wait, your complexion isn't good. Don't rush into my shrine, just sit here for now." So, the two sat down right at the doorway. Master Quinn stared intently at Mike's forehead. His spiritual eyes had already spotted a dark aura on Mike's forehead. This person is either being followed by a spirit or harmed by a demon. Master Quinn pressed his finger on Mike's pale forehead and closed his eyes for a moment. A moment later, he opened his eyes, exhaled, and said, "All right, come inside." Mike was weary. He didn't understand what effect these actions had, but since he was already here, he might as well try. Stepping over the threshold, Mike saw the interior as a miniature temple, with a shining gilded altar and dense incense smoke rising. The two went inside, sat on a set of wooden chairs, and began to talk. Master Quinn opened the conversation. "How long has she been following you?" Mike looked up, puzzled. "How did you know, Master?" "You don't need to ask that, just answer. It was just yesterday. What was your relationship with her?" Mike frowned. "Should I tell the truth now? Of course not. He didn't know how capable this sorcerer was. What if it didn't help and his dark secret was exposed? So Mike quickly concocted another story. "She was a friend of mine. She passed away almost 2 years ago." "Did you have any enmity with her?" "No." "Did you make any promises to her?" "Ah, there was that. I once promised to love her in the future. But she's gone, how could that happen?" Master Quinn nodded after hearing this. "This spirit is still clinging to the mortal world. I examined your forehead earlier and saw some demonic energy, but it's not beyond salvation. Wait a moment, I'll perform a ritual to give you a peace talisman. Bring it home and place it on your altar, right under your incense bowl." "Thank you, Master. How much do I owe you?" "No need for payment, but I have a donation box out front. If you wish to contribute, you may. The money collected goes to charity for orphans at the end of the month." Hearing this, Mike felt greatly relieved. It wouldn't cost him much. Master Quinn walked to the altar, muttering incantations. A moment later, he took a small yellow paper and used a brush to draw symbols on it. Then he handed the talisman to Mike and instructed him, "Take this talisman home and place it in your room, somewhere undisturbed. Absolutely do not remove it, otherwise it will lose its effect." Mike nodded, thanked Master Quinn, and quickly left. Back home, Mike immediately stuck the talisman to an empty corner of the wall next to the TV cabinet. After that, he secretly hoped to see if it would work, and indeed, the talisman worked surprisingly well. Mike headed up for 3 days. Nothing out of the ordinary happened to him. He even felt mentally relaxed. He thought of Trish. Today he would go pick her up. For the past few days, he hadn't dared to be intimate with Trish for fear of Scarlett's ghost reappearing. Trish, being a bit coquettish, initially refused to come home, but after Mike told her that his construction materials shop would open at the end of the month, which also meant he was about to register their marriage, she quickly agreed to go back to his house. Eager to test the talisman's effectiveness and making up for lost time, Mike spent the entire afternoon with Trish. And miraculously, he didn't see that gruesome image anymore. Whether the lights were on or off, there was only one woman before his eyes, Trish. Meanwhile, Mrs. Kim, ever since representing her daughter in the divorce from Mike, had been having continuous dreams of Scarlett. From vague dreams to even seeing her daughter's figure standing right outside the door, looking very emaciated. As she muttered this, Mrs. Kim would weep, wondering how her daughter was doing overseas to be appearing like this. Or perhaps, thinking of something ominous, she quickly contacted Jade, her youngest daughter, telling her to come home immediately. When Jade arrived, she found Mrs. Kim sitting in a corner of the room, crying. She rushed over and asked, Mom, what's wrong?" Hearing her daughter's voice, Mrs. Kim looked up. "Child, I just saw Scarlett again." What did you say, Mom? You're dreaming in broad daylight? I saw her standing outside our fence. She was crying miserably, hungry and pitiful, my child." For the past few days, Jade had also heard her mother call about these dreams. However, she had always tried to reassure her mother. But now, seeing her mother's condition firsthand, Jade knew there was a problem. If it were just 1 or 2 dreams, it would be fine, but for Mrs. Kim to see this every time she closed her eyes, wasn't that too strange? Jade helped Mrs. Kim up and sat her on a chair. "Don't worry, Mom. I'll ask someone to look into her information. But if there were any problems with her over there, they would have already notified us, right? She works for a company. She didn't go there to get married." Her daughter's reassurance slowly helped Mrs. Kim regain her composure. Jade then took her mother to stay with a relative for a few days, so her mother wouldn't be alone and lose control of her behavior when dreaming of Scarlett. After everything was settled, Jade took a bus to the city. She went to Scarlett's former employment agency. After waiting in the waiting room for over half a day, she finally met a representative from the center. At the round table in the room, Jade couldn't believe her ears. Scarlett had never submitted any money or paperwork for going abroad. A few days before her supposed departure, Scarlett had come to the center to inquire about the fees, but then she never returned. "She probably found the fees too high and got cold feet," the man said. The man's words hit Jade like a thunderbolt. She had to ask again several times. The man even brought out documents and ledgers from 2 years ago for Jade to see, and indeed, there was no confirmation or any information about Scarlett. That year's overseas departure group had a total of 12 people. In the photo taken of the group at the airport, Jade counted only 11 people. Scarlett was the only one missing. On the way home, Jade was confused by a flood of thoughts. Hadn't Scarlett sent a message saying she had left? She had even sent money home months later. And the amount wasn't small, over 60 million VND. Or perhaps Scarlett didn't go abroad but took another job? No, that couldn't be right. If so, she would have contacted her family. She slowly realized that in the past 2 years, ever since receiving Scarlett's message, Mrs. Kim and she had never heard Scarlett's voice again. This definitely hinted at something hidden. Suddenly, a name flashed in Jade's mind. Mike. That's right, her poor brother-in-law. For the past 2 years, he had unconditionally served his wife's family without a single complaint. Was he doing that because he was waiting for Scarlett? Or did he know that Scarlett would never return? Thinking this, Jade rushed to catch the next bus. For now, she wouldn't tell Mrs. Kim that Scarlett hadn't gone abroad. As for Mike, she planned to meet him and ask him questions. She believed there was truly something wrong with their relationship. Meanwhile, for Mike, the past few days had been the most wonderful. His shop had been renovated and was ready. He was just waiting for the opening day. Trish was thinking about registering their marriage. She had even tried on a gorgeous wedding dress in preparation. And Mike's daily life was truly comfortable. He no longer felt fear, no more nightmares or terrifying hallucinations. He and Trish continued their days of pleasure in passionate encounters. This morning, like any other after a night of hard work, Mike woke up at 8:00 a.m. He felt great. Trish was still lying in bed. Mike leaned down, kissed her forehead, and then went into the bathroom. The doorbell rang, startling Mike. Who could be visiting so early in the morning? Mike quickly washed his face and rushed out. The doorbell kept ringing incessantly. He quickly reached for the door and said, "Coming, coming." Mike reached out and pulled the latch, then gasped in surprise at the person standing before him. "Oh, Jade, hello, brother-in-law, how are you?" Jade said, looking at him with searching eyes. Mike frowned, thinking to himself, why is this girl here? What does she want? He then spoke warmly, "How are you and Mom? Lately, I've been busy with work up here, so I haven't been able to go home to visit Mom. I've come here to ask you something." "What is it?" "It's about Scarlett." Mike's body stiffened, but he quickly composed himself. "Scarlett? Wah, what about her?" Mike feigned ignorance, unable to stay completely silent. "So, what's wrong? Can you come inside?" Mike suddenly remembered Trish was still inside. What if Jade came in? However, he was divorced and legally no longer connected to Jade's family. Could the image of the good son-in-law, which had been associated with him all this time, be completely ruined by this? It can't be. Mike scratched his head, stammering, "It's very messy inside. It's not convenient for you to come in." Jade wasn't keen on going into Mike's house anyway, so she said, "All right, how about this? I'll go to the coffee shop nearby and wait for you. You get ready and then come over. We can talk there." "Oh, all right, you go ahead, I'll be right out." Jade nodded, then turned and slowly walked away. Mike frantically rushed inside, his mind in a turmoil. He wondered if Jade had found out anything, or if she had found any clues about Scarlett. Thinking about this, Mike considered himself foolish. It's been 2 years. Scarlett's body must have been completely digested by the fish in the sea by now. How could anything be discovered? Mike reassured himself, then quickly put on his clothes. When he arrived, Mike saw Jade already waiting. Her coffee cup was already half empty. Mike smiled as he approached and patted her shoulder, saying, "Have you been waiting long?" "Oh, not long at all, brother-in-law. Please sit down." Mike pulled up a chair and sat down. After ordering his drink, he went straight to the point. "So, why did you come here today?" "I'm here because of Scarlett." "What about her, dear? Do you know that Scarlett never went abroad at all?" Mike flinched, a hint of confusion in his eyes, but he quickly masked it. "What nonsense are you talking about? She clearly left." "No, I'm serious. She never went abroad." "Are you sure?" "Yes, I'm certain. I went to the Overseas Employment Agency, and her name wasn't in their records for that year." "No, that can't be right. So, where did she go?" Jade shook her head at Mike's question. She continued, "I don't know, but if she didn't go abroad, and she hasn't contacted her family, and even said not to tell you because she was tired of you. Then I ask you, before Scarlett disappeared, were you and she all right?" Mike swallowed hard, his hand beneath the table clenched tightly. "Everything was normal, nothing was wrong. I only heard her say she was about to leave." Jade nodded. "If that's the case, then why would she want to avoid you? If she didn't go abroad, why would she avoid you?" Mike racked his brain, trying to come up with an answer. Actually, we had an argument a few days before that." Not letting Jade question further, Mike quickly added, "The reason for that argument was Scarlett. She asked for a divorce. She said that if she went abroad for 2 years, I would change my mind anyway. So she wanted to end things. If I hadn't married anyone when she came back, and we still loved each other, we would remarry. But then she left without any contact. As you can see, I didn't give up. For nearly 2 years, I appeared at your house as a proper son-in-law. I never thought it would be her who changed her mind." Another perfect story fabricated by Mike. Mike's words partly softened Jade, and indeed, during the time she was working far away, Mike had been the one to take care of Mrs. Kim, and her mother's good words about him had given Jade a lot of sympathy for him. She sighed, then said, "If you say so, I understand. And today, my mother keeps saying she dreams of Scarlett. Why is that?" "What did you say?" Jade nodded. "Yes, my mother keeps dreaming of her. Every time she sees her, she cries." "Oh my God, what's going on?" "Yes, that's why I'm afraid something might have happened to her." Mike said nothing, thinking to himself, so, Scarlett's ghost isn't just appearing to me, but to Mrs. Kim too. This was not good for him at all, but he still tried to compose himself. Now, who can accuse him? Even if Scarlett's ghost came back and told the story, there would be no proof. Mike sighed, then said, "I honestly don't want to know what happened to Scarlett or how she is. After all, there was still some marital affection between us. Anyway, I won't bother you anymore. You've answered my questions. I'll go back and ask some acquaintances. If that doesn't work, I'll have to put out a missing person ad in the newspaper." All right, then you should go. Be careful on your way home. I'll pay for this coffee. Yes, thank you, brother-in-law, Jade nodded. She stood up and walked out. Mike remained at the table. He sipped his coffee, still carefully recalling his memories to see if there was anything that could be used to incriminate him. A sudden thunderclap made Mike jump. Why is there such thunder and lightning in March? A sudden downpour began. The sound of the rain quickly cut off his train of thought. Mike looked out at the street, at the people running to find shelter. Suddenly, Mike's gaze stopped at the street corner. A girl in a white dress and long-sleeved t-shirt was looking straight at him. It was Scarlett. Mike almost fell off his chair when he spotted that familiar figure. He stammered, "Scarlett? Scarlett?" The figure continued to stare at him. Mike rubbed his eyes. The figure was still standing there. His blood boiled. After all, it was daytime. He had to run out and see if that figure was really Scarlett. With that, Mike stormed outside, but as soon as he opened the door, he no longer saw the figure. He muttered a curse, but then Mike froze. If Scarlett appeared again, then perhaps, he swore again. Mike, ignoring the pouring rain, ran straight home. As he opened the door, he saw Trish, who was cleaning the house. Seeing her lover drenched like a drowned rat, Trish immediately asked, "Where have you been? Look at you. Go take a shower, you'll catch a cold." Mike paid no attention to Trish's words. What he cared about was the yellow object Trish held in her hand. He shrieked in horror. "Oh my God, Trish, what have you done?" Mike snatched the talisman from Trish's hand. She was completely helpless against his actions and quickly said, "I don't know, it fell to the ground while I was cleaning. I'm really useless." Suddenly being scolded without understanding why, Trish yelled back. She threw the broom to the floor and said, "What are you talking about? Can't you see I'm cleaning the house? What is this cursed thing that you care so much about? If it fell, we can just stick it back on. You're really disappointing me." Mike stared at her, his voice low and threatening. "You, if you don't know, just shut up." I'll shut up to please you." After saying that, Trish turned and walked out. It was pouring rain, but she still got on her motorbike and left. Mike collapsed onto the floor. So, Scarlett's ghost was able to appear because this talisman had fallen down. So, he quickly got up, took some glue, and stuck the talisman back on the wall to be safe. He even put a lot of extra glue to secure it before slumping down, panting. He hoped everything would be all right. That night, the rain continued to pour relentlessly. Mike sat huddled on the bed. He thought of Trish, but no, if Trish were here now, what if she turned into Scarlett? It was best if no one appeared at this moment. As he sat there, the lights in the house suddenly went out, startling Mike. The heavy rain must have caused problems with the power system in the area. Mike reached for his phone, turned on the flashlight, and continued to sit. He listened to his own breathing, waiting for something he didn't even know. At midnight, Mike breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed the talisman still had its effect. Mike lay back on the comfortable bed, satisfied, but he didn't have to wait long. About 20 minutes later, something strange happened. Mike was lying down when he clearly heard dripping water. He thought to himself, could the house be leaking? The dripping sound grew louder and louder. Mike suddenly remembered the pile of construction materials he had just brought in, preparing for the grand opening. If that stock got wet from the rain, he'd be ruined. Thinking this, Mike sat up, opened the door, and stepped out. He shone his flashlight forward and cautiously walked. The sound of water came from the living room. Mike reached the room, shone his flashlight on the wall, and to his horror, a section of the wall was now stained red. A strong, putrid, fishy smell wafted through the air. This smell was exactly like the time he saw Trish turn into Scarlett. A dark red liquid flowed down the wall, which Mike believed was blood, red blood spreading across the floor. Mike was frozen in place. He could only stare wide-eyed at the talisman he had glued earlier. Now it too was covered in thick red blood. A sound behind him made Mike jump, his heart nearly bursting as he turned around. Behind him was Scarlett, a body covered in blood, festering flesh, with gashes, bruises, and swollen wounds. She extended two bony, protruding hands towards Mike. "You must die. You must die." Mike shrieked and fled. He forced open the door without needing to unlock it. Mike kept running until he stopped at a house surrounded by trees. He yelled until his voice was hoarse. "Master Quinn, Master Quinn?" No one answered him. He continued to pound on the door and scream. It took several minutes before a light came on inside. Master Quinn appeared, looking at Mike with anger. Mike noticed blood at the corner of the master's mouth. He immediately shouted, "You scoundrel, I helped you, but you lied to me. Your talisman fell off, didn't it?" Mike said nothing, just nodded, his eyes filled with terror. I warned you not to remove it. Earlier, I dreamt that girl came to me. She told me everything. I then used my magic to try and appease her, but the information you gave me about her earlier was false. Because of your lies, my spell had no effect. Instead, it backfired. It's your fault, you damn son. It's come to this, I have no other way. Clearly, your karma has caught up with you. With that, Master Quinn slammed the door shut, leaving Mike screaming outside. Mike collapsed to the ground. Suddenly, he heard a voice whispering in his ear, Mike, why are you running away? Come play with me. Mike shrieked. He cried out, Scarlett, Scarlett, please have mercy. A shrill laugh echoed. Mike was terrified. He used all his strength to get up. He continued to run. He just ran. As he ran, he screamed madly. Mike ran for a while until his eyes suddenly went dark, and he collapsed, unconscious. Hey, you there, wake up. Mike slowly opened his eyes. The direct light shining on him was irritating. The voice continued to ring in his ears. Hey, young man, why are you lying in the middle of the road like this? By now, his eyes had adjusted to the light, and Mike looked around. A crowd of people surrounded him. It turned out that last night he had run from Scarlett's ghost, then collapsed from exhaustion. He was about to shed tears of gratitude to everyone, but Mike was struck dumb when the person standing in front of him was none other than Scarlett. Still in her terrifying body and gruesome face, she looked at him and smiled. What's wrong? What's wrong? Mike flailed. He looked around. The crowd surrounding him terrified him even more. All these people, though with different bodies, had one thing in common. They all wore one face, Scarlett's demonic face. Whelmed with horror, Mike suddenly ran off, screaming loudly, Help, help! He just ran out into the street. Oh my God, someone stop him, it's too dangerous. Mike kept running in the middle of the main road until his eyes registered what was happening, but it was too late. A truck sped by, throwing Mike nearly 10 meters away. His neck bones shattered, blood gushed from his nose and mouth. Onlookers quickly shouted for an ambulance and the police. Mike lay there, not yet completely dead. He looked forward and saw Scarlett. She stood on the roadside, looking at him and smiling, her two hands raised and waving. The demonic image was gone. Scarlett now wore her beautiful form as she had before her death. She smiled enigmatically, a smile full of eerie charm.